What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 76. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another episode where we break down and discuss a new film that we got to check out in theaters. Just want to throw it out there. If you have not checked out last week's episode number 75, I actually invited my brother to talk about The Bike Riders. So we talked a lot about different stuff that we enjoyed, that we didn't like. Definitely go check it out. It was a fun discussion. And let me know down below again if you thought The Bike Riders was timeless. On this week's episode, we're going to be covering a new film. It's actually a prequel to the Quiet Place universe. That's right, it is A Quiet Place Day 1. Super excited to check this one out. Actually, when I first started this Timeless Movie Podcast, one of the first films that I got to review was A Quiet Place 2. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought that one was timeless. So we'll see how this one does after I break it down. Overall, though, I was really excited to go watch this movie. Again, like I mentioned, I really enjoyed the first two entries. So I was really curious as to how this prequel movie was going to be able to expand and give more lore. That way, again, it just makes this franchise an even bigger hit and maybe causes more spin-offs as to what happened when this alien invasion occurred. So let's go ahead and let's dive into some of my overall thoughts now that I got to check it out. Overall, I thought this movie was really good. What got me most excited about checking it out was the sound design. From the first two entries of the Quiet Place universe, the sound design was always so good because it's a film where there's not a lot of talking, not a lot of dialogue, but when those moments do occur, when creatures come out or when people are running away from, disaster about to occur, the sound design was just so on point. And I can say that this film did not disappoint. Whenever there was jump scares, whenever there was different types of scenes where the score would be playing, all those different types of elements really added to the experience of watching this movie. And I really enjoyed it. Speaking of jump scares, there was a couple that caught me off guard a couple times. It also caught a couple of our audience members that were watching the movie as well. So really well done to the director and the team that made the film. Again, that very, very rare is that when I flinch while watching a specific type of a movie, especially one like this, but really well done. And again, that also goes to the sound design of the movie. Also want to throw out there that the score really added to some scenes to kind of add more tension or more anxiety. So I really appreciated that. Again, and especially in a unique film where dialogue is not the most important thing. If you talk, you end up dying in this universe because these creatures, these aliens, they just feed off of these different types of frequencies. And when they hear something, they immediately go and try to get it. And so, again, same type of rules that have been established for the first two films, they're done in this film as well. One other thing that I thought was very cool was we were following the protagonist known as Sam. Sam is played by Lupita Nyong'o. She is a character that basically goes through, as this invasion is occurring, she's actually experiencing this chaos and destruction in a very different way than not only characters in this film, but also characters in the first two entries of A Quiet Place universe. And I thought that was a very good decision made by the team that developed this film. Again, it's just such a different type of a perspective that, again, one that I wasn't expecting, but really appreciated as well. I do want to say, though, if we're comparing it to the first two films of A Quiet Place universe, I do feel like there's something missing in A Quiet Place Day 1. I'll kind of dive into it a little bit when I get to some of my cons of the film, but just overall, to kind of give you that context, there was just something, again, that just felt like it was, not similar to how the first two entries were. The first two entries were, again, such a unique experience. We've never kind of gone through those types of films where, again, talking is actually bad. You're not supposed to do that. So in this film, there was just something that I just couldn't connect with. But once again, we'll cover that in some of the cons. Overall, I still enjoyed watching this one in theaters. It was a fun time to watch. And I think this is a great segue to jump into some of my pros. First pro that I had for A Quiet Place Day 1 is Sam's story. So again, I called it out. Overall, Sam is really the highlight of this film. Lupita Nyong'o plays Sam. They immediately highlight at the beginning of the film that Sam has cancer. She's dealing with cancer. She's going through those different types of pains. She has this and it's totally justifiable. she has this very dark outlook on life, right? She obviously experienced a lot of these different types of memories before she had cancer, but now she's having to, force and adjust to this kind of a life. And it's obviously, a very terrible situation. She can't do what she always wants to do. But, what I love most about her story is that because she has cancer, she actually has a different perspective than everybody else. When this invasion occurs, all of these individuals that are in New York City, all they're thinking about is, how am I going to survive? How am I going to escape this specific situation that I'm in and go somewhere where these aliens don't exist? And Sam is actually the complete opposite. She doesn't care that much, unfortunately, about surviving because she knows what her fate is. She knows that this cancer is slowly taking her away. But again, she's still surviving, but she's surviving for different reasons. She's surviving because she wants to actually relive the happy memories that she has before her life comes to an end. And it was really beautiful. She ends up trying to go get pizza. That was her main goal. She needs to go get pizza because, again, she loved going to get pizza at this one specific place that she did with her father. She also wanted to go visit a jazz club that her father would always take her to, and they would have great times as well. So it was just, again, a great contrast to what other characters in this universe and even in this film were going through. While everybody was trying to find ways to get off of New York, she was basically knowing, hey, I'm basically going to stay here. There's no point in me trying to escape. Again, my days are numbered, unfortunately, but I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to live, in those types of moments where all I'm thinking about is surviving for the next day. I want to live my last days happy and just filled with all these memories that I've lived so far. And so I thought that was really great job by the team to kind of develop this kind of character to show off those moments. Second pro for me was the setting of where A Quiet Place Day 1 took place. It took place, no surprise, in New York City. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, New York City is always the epicenter of every film, right? In every film that deals with, types of post-apocalyptic events, for all the superhero films, New York is always in every movie and TV show. And I completely understand. But what I love about this film is that how New York looks after it's been destroyed and all these different types of creatures start wreaking havoc in the city. The way that they made the streets look, they have sewer holes, manholes blowing out with fire. You have the subway entrances for New York flooded with water. All of this destruction, all of this chaos that is going on, the way that they filmed it, it all looks so real, which added to my experience as watching it. It just made it that much more of a real thing that I can imagine in my head. Like, yeah, I could, if something were to happen like this, I can totally see the streets looking like that. Or what if I was on the streets after something like this happens where alien invasion occurs, you see different types of things crashing into Earth and destroying New York City. This is what I would imagine it looking like. So again, to me, I really enjoyed the way that they made the entire city look. It didn't look like they were on green screen at certain times. It looked like they were just on sets made to look like New York, and everything looks so realistic and authentic. So really enjoyed that by the team that developed the film as well. Last pro is actually the way that they were able to incorporate rain into this movie. Now, I want to say, and guys, correct me down below in the comments, I haven't seen A Quiet Place Day 1 and Day 2 in a while, but I believe that there hasn't been a situation where there's been rain involved in this universe. There may have been like waterfalls, I believe, but not rain itself. So I really enjoyed that they added the aspect of rain in New York City. Obviously, again, that it rains a lot of times in New York. So when they added that and they added the thunder, I immediately thought, oh, that's such a great way to add another element to this universe in that the monsters are always so dependent on noise. So what happens when you have rain bouncing off of the cement, rain bouncing off of buildings, off of these different types of environments? How does that mess up with the creatures, hearing and how they're able to find the humans all over New York City? Or what happens when there's thunder? What are the creatures going to do? And so I really enjoyed that, and it actually opened up a way to communicate a little bit more in the film. You actually have Sam communicate with Eric. Eric is actually the second protagonist in this film. He's played by Joseph Quinn. And they actually are able to have slight conversations when there's rain. Because again, the rain is bouncing off of so many things in New York City that, again, it allows him to whisper just a little bit so that the frequency doesn't get picked up by these creatures. I really enjoyed that. That was such a unique aspect, and again, a great way to kind of expand a little bit and make this just a little bit different from the first two entries of the film. Okay, now let's go ahead and segue into the cons that I had about this film. Like I mentioned at the overall thoughts, nothing that really made me think, oh, okay, I hate this movie. Again, that's not what I feel at all. I, again, really enjoyed my time watching A Quiet Place Day 1, but I feel like I wasn't able to connect with it like I did the first two films. First con as to why is I feel like I wanted to know more about Eric's backstory. So like I mentioned, Eric is played by Joseph Quinn. He does a great job with this character, and he's portrayed as a character that is basically lonely, and he follows Sam around everywhere she goes because he doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know where to go, and he's just scared. He doesn't have anybody. Now, they have a little blurb in the film that explains, hey, my parents are in the UK, I have no friends here in law school, and things of that nature. But I really wish they, instead of explaining that, I wish they would have actually spent a couple of minutes just showing Eric go through that. Show him going through these situations where in law school, nobody talks to him. He has no friends. He has nobody to really interact with. I want to see him be lonely. I want to see him interact in these types of situations because that would make me feel a lot more sympathy for him when he does meet Sam and he ends up just completely just not doing and not knowing what to do and just wanting to follow Sam. When that occurred in the film, I was just so confused. Like, why is he following Sam? Like, I get that he's lonely, but there's a lot of other people that he could have just walked with, and he didn't walk with them. Why Sam? And so I really thought that would have added to maybe me feeling a lot more of a connection with Eric, is if I could have seen a little bit more of his backstory. For Sam, again, right from the beginning of the movie, they focus the perspective on Sam and what she's going through. But I think it would have gone a long ways if they would have done the same thing for Eric, just to make that interaction between Sam and Eric just a lot more stronger for me, at least. Second con that I have as a nitpick is the way communication is done in this film. Now, in the first two Quiet Place films, communication is obviously, again, very limited because if you talk, you end up dying because these creatures will hear it and they'll chase you down. What they are able to land in the first two films is because one of the characters is deaf, they're able to use sign language. And so the family is able to communicate using sign language. And I thought that was such a genius way in the first two films to be able to still have some type of dialogue and still have the thoughts that these characters are going through without just having like these nonverbal communications or having a silent film. In this movie, A Quiet Place Day 1, there's no characters that know sign language. So you just have nonverbal communication. And although Sam and Eric did have a lot of interactions just using facial expressions, using their body language to talk through what was going on, I actually wish there was other ways that they were able to communicate. Like if they were able to write down more notes, pass along what they're thinking, just kind of asking each other these different types of elements that they're experiencing in New York. I thought that would have at least helped me feel a little bit stronger for these characters and their relationship and what they're experiencing, this trauma that they're experiencing in New York. That's, again, a small nitpick. Again, feel free to disagree with me if you got down below in the comments. That was just something that, again, I felt, and it's only because I'm comparing it to the first film where, again, even though they didn't talk, there was still ways of communication. And in this film, I feel like there's more on the nonverbal, and it's very well done by Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. But I wish there was other ways that they were able to find communication, whether, again, it's writing down notes or any other kind of way. But, again, just a small little nitpick on things that I just felt like I couldn't connect with the movie overall from that side of it. Still doesn't take away about how much I appreciated and enjoyed watching it in theaters. All right, everybody. Now let's go ahead and move on to some of my favorite moments, my favorite performances. I even actually want to add a new piece to this, and that's actually my favorite still or favorite shot of the movie. What's something that maybe I really enjoyed that could almost be like a poster because of how beautiful it looks. So let's start off with favorite performance. This one's easy for me. I'm going to give my favorite performance to Lupita Nyong'o as Sam. Like I mentioned, she was the main protagonist of this movie. You're experiencing her story after going through this invasion on the first day that this occurs, you're seeing how she's really living through life. And once again, how different her perspective is. She knows that her days are numbered because of the cancer that is hurting her within her body. So she's just trying to relive her memories. And you could just see the joy that she feels at the end of the movie, the tears that go through her eyes. And especially when she's having these moments where the cancer is really causing a lot of pain inside her body. You just see all of that, and she just performed really well. I spoke a little bit about the communication, right? A lot of nonverbal communication. She had some of the best nonverbal and facial expressions in the film. Just the way that she would look at Sam, or apologies, the way that she would look at Eric, whenever they were kind of trying to have little conversations here and there under the rain, just different things of that nature. She had some great looks, and just her eyes commanded so much attention. So great job by Lupita Nyong'o as Sam. She is my favorite performance. All right, favorite moment of the entire film was actually by a character named Henry. Henry is played by Jaman Hansu. He actually is, in the same situation that most of New York is in, right? He's trying to survive. He's with his family as this invasion occurs. And he's actually in a specific place where he's on the top of a rooftop building in this scene. And he's watching the Brooklyn Bridge actually be destroyed by these fighter jets. Basically, they're trying to get rid of all these bridges so that the aliens do not get spread out to all of New York. And so they basically shut any way of the civilians that are on the island of New York to basically even escape. And so you have Henry just in awe as what's going on. But what's worse is that there's a side character that wants to basically scream in terror. He is terrified. And Henry goes over to him and covers his mouth and says, "You can't talk. You have to whisper. You cannot say anything because these creatures will pick up our sound." And this side character is just freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. He's trying to get Henry's hand off of his mouth. And the moment you see that he's about to say a word, Henry has no other choice but to try to push him and force him not to talk. And he ends up shoving his head against a brick wall and actually kills him. And it was just such a tragic scene. But what I love most about it is you could totally see that occurring if there was some type of a chaotic event or a post-apocalyptic event. People that are so terrified, so frustrated with what is going on that they have no choice but to cry out for help. And you have other individuals that are just trying to protect their families. And Henry, again, had a child, and that child, his son, was actually watching him and trying to see what his dad was going to do to this individual if he did cry out for help, basically putting everybody's lives at risk. And so Henry had no other choice but to try to stop that individual. And so a very tragic scene, but very strong performance by Jaman Hansu to kind of pull that off as well. So really great stuff. And that was my favorite moment of the film. This actually segues into my favorite shot or favorite still of the movie. It actually takes place when they're actually destroying the Brooklyn Bridge. These fighter jets actually shoot some rockets. They destroy the Brooklyn Bridge. And as you see the Brooklyn Bridge falling into the river, you see 3 silhouettes of individuals. And those silhouettes are actually Henry, played by Jaman Hansu. You see Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o. And then you see Ruben, played by Alex Wolff. And you just see the 3 silhouettes of those characters watching in awe and terror of this Brooklyn Bridge basically being destroyed. And if you freeze it right there, that shot was just so well done. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, a very horrible thing that you see a bridge kind of collapse. That was just, again, a beautiful shot that I really enjoyed and one that stuck out to me after I watched the movie. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and now answer the question, is A Quiet Place Day 1 timeless? In my personal opinion, guys, it is not a timeless movie. I keep comparing it to the first 2 entries of A Quiet Place universe, and I just feel like I probably gravitate more to watching those. Like I mentioned before, there's just a couple of things that I just couldn't connect with, right? I wanted to connect more with Eric, and I wanted to see, what was his backstory before the invasion occurred. I wanted to see if there was other ways that they could communicate. They highlighted that you can maybe whisper within the rain, but I was hoping that Sam and Eric could build more of the relationship by finding ways to communicate. Again, those are just small little nitpicks, but also I just feel like the first 2 films, A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2, they're so unique. They're so different from other movies that we've gotten to see in theaters that, again, I really loved the way that they were able to kind of build this universe. Whereas in this one, again, A Quiet Place Day One, I feel like other than seeing, these characters survive the chaos that occurred on the first day, not much was really added to this universe, right? Again, to me, it is not a timeless movie. I still enjoyed it. And funny enough, I would still actually recommend you guys go watch it in theaters. Watching this in theaters, I think, adds a lot to it because there's a lot of great sound design, a lot of great jump scares that the team that made this film were able to kind of build into it. So I still actually would recommend folks go check it out in theaters. It's still a really good movie. These are just my opinions. What I really want to know is, what do you think about A Quiet Place Day One? Did you go check it out in theaters? Where does it rank for you of all the different Quiet Place films? Let me know down below whether you, again, agree with my thoughts, disagree with my thoughts. Definitely want to have that interaction with you guys. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for listening to this breakdown of A Quiet Place Day One. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 76 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new film. We talk about our pros and cons and then decide if it is timeless. All right, guys. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your week.